Hey everybody, so today it was fun. We went to the zoo. Well, it was a zoo. Technically it was a zoo. No, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was smaller than we thought, but it was fun. That was the Fort Worth Zoo. And then we came to Mineral States Hills Park something.
Lake Mineral.
Lake Mineral Springs.
Well,
Why don't you get on camera and do this? You seem to know the name. Lake Mineral Wells?
yeah,
Whatever.
State Park.
State Park. And it was really cool. We did some canyon stuff, people were rock climbing, and so yeah, here's a quick little video to show you what we did today, and then we'll be right back with Salt. Hey! All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Salt on Location. We're here at Mineral Wells something Lake with Franklin the duck, who apparently is very pushy and hungry. But we thought we'd do on location today. We went to the zoo, and we didn't get this close to animals.
That's true, we didn't. Not at the zoo.
This duck doesn't care if you pet him.
He seems
He
to actually
likes it.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, anyway, Miranda's going to talk, and I'm going to chime in while I try and keep Franklin
Yeah.
occupied.
Because he was nibbling on my fingers, and I didn't like that. So.
He will go a little bit away. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I got him a little distance. Go ahead, go.
Yeah. Okay. So. Well, we had to drive through Fort Worth to get on up here, and last week we went to the store. We had to go grocery shopping in Fort Worth. And so Brett was driving. It's really nice when Brett drives. And so we're driving along, and all of a sudden, and Brett's in the fast lane, right? Because that's where Brett drives, is in the fast lane.
Yep, that's
And-
the place to be.
Yes, I mean, he's not one of those people slowing up everybody behind him. He is honestly the fast person there. And so, he's coming along, and he's going to be passing a truck that's in the slower lane. All of a sudden, this white car zips on us, on up next to us, and there's about, a half a car's length between us and passing the other truck. And he literally tries to pull in. Well, Brett's just driving, So he just keeps on going. And this guy backs off, and he rolled down his window, and he flips us off.
Yeah, I was doing something wrong.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, as he dropped behind us, because, you read stories on the news in Dallas-Fort Worth where, someone gets shot in a road rage incident and such, So I'm like, no, he's going to pull out a gun and shoot us. But no, eventually, I don't know how it happened. I think he zoomed over to the side, cut through traffic a little bit, and got directly in front of us. And then he rolls down his window and he flips us off again. And anyways, long story short, eventually he's zooming through traffic, is driving along the side of the road where you're not supposed to drive at all, and eventually pulls off. So this week, no kidding, right about the very same place on I-35 there in Fort Worth, all of a sudden this white car comes along behind us and literally cuts right in us and his truck. He couldn't have parallel parked any tighter than pulling in there. And so anyways, then he zoomed out, pulls in front of the truck, and slows down. That was kind of interesting. And we kind of wondered if it was the same person because of it happening in the same area, same car, white car, tinted windows. The only problem is in Texas, probably half the cars on the road are white with tinted windows. But you know, in life, we want God to give us his things like peace and joy and love for others and things like that, right?
And that guy had no peace, joy, or love for others. I'm just saying.
No, he didn't. He didn't. And yet, sometimes when we ask for those things, you know, God gives them to us. He gives them to us. He also provides the opportunities to use those gifts that he gives us. And so these things, well, I'm not saying he made that happen, but you know, these things happen in life. And so we have an opportunity to use the gift. And many times our gifts of peace and love and joy and such don't necessarily grow because we aren't using them. And I am going to, well, first of all, I just want to say that our text for the day is Genesis 22:14. And that is, so Abraham called the name of that place, the Lord will provide. And as we go a little bit further, we will discover what it is that the Lord will provide. So, oh boy, where were we here? All right, okay, so the concept we're talking about today is that when we are in the path of righteousness, God's truth is there on the path of righteousness, and we are to live out God's truths, right? And the truth, whatever it may be, let's say it's love your neighbor, or live in joy and peace, whatever it may be, we see the concept there all written out, and we go, yeah, I believe that. That is truth. And yet, God calls us many times to live out truth one letter at a time. And so it's not like this great big thing. God's like, all right, it's, let's say, love your neighbor. Let's start with the letter L. And when that opportunity comes for us to live out peace, like take, for instance, that road rage incident, and I'd have to say that Brett did really well living out peace. Yes, he did. He didn't flip the other guy off. He didn't say angry words. Yeah. So, you know, then when we live out the truth, it takes us to the next letter. Let's see, in this instance, it would be O. You know, so whenever we live out truth, then we have more truth to build on and live out and see the next truth even. If we in that sort of situation, it's actually quite easy to have an excuse to not live out the truths of love and peace and joy and such, and the belief that all things work together for good. It's easy to have an excuse. And when we do that, we start blinding ourselves to the truth, and then taking the next step in love and peace and God's truth becomes much harder to do because we didn't take this step. So, you know, I have a friend who said, you know what? I don't want to live out the small truths. I just want to get around to living out the big truths. The problem is we can't live out the big truth until we live out those small truths one little step at a time. So we are going to use, I don't know, let's take the walls of Jericho, for example. And to join me at some point in time. Is he done feeding the duck?
We are all out. We'll see how Franklin does with no food left.
We'll see if he comes and nibbles on Brett's fingers.
Me, yes.
He tried to take my finger right off. He really did. He had little tiny teeth
He
too.
just thought you were sweet.
Yes, well, I think he figured out I wasn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now he's getting a drink of water. Okay, so where are we at?
Oh, we're at the walls of Jericho.
Yes.
So living out truth. Okay, so take for instance, God told them to march around Jericho for 6 days once, right? And then on the seventh day, they were to march around Jericho 7 times, and then the walls were going to fall down, right?
Yeah.
And well, see, at least they knew the ending, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but many times, like when God asks us to live out that truth one letter at a time, we don't necessarily see the end. We know what the big picture of the end is, but we don't necessarily know exactly where God is taking us and how awesome really that place is going to be.
Yeah.
Because it's different for everyone, but the journey is different. The experiences are different. So So it would have been easy enough for the Israelites to say, oh, why do we have to march around every single day?
Yeah.
Why don't we just save some time? Can you imagine how much work that was to gather everybody up and together, all these men to march around the city once every day? That must have been quite the excursion.
Yeah. And there was like no point to, in their eyes, probably no point to, why are we doing this? Yeah.
And so,
because they don't forget, they were being made fun of too, just like Noah got made fun of. The people walking around the walls, probably the first day, the guys up on the wall, and the Jerichoites.
sure,
Canaanites, okay. I like Jerichoans.
Jerichoans, yeah.
They were probably nervous the first day, because they were actually very proud of their wall. Jericho was actually known for its impenetrable wall. It wasn't just one big wall. It was, I think, a series of walls. And probably the first day they were like, what's going on? And, we got to keep our eye. They got some sort of weird plan. We don't know what they're doing. But after a little while, they're probably making fun of them and throwing slushies at them. Oh, wait, that was vegetarian. I wouldn't doubt it if they were throwing things at them from the wall, because they were like, this is ridiculous. These people are obviously sunbaked and half, mental.
Yeah.
And yet God was making a point.
Yeah, and so it would have been just as easy to say, well, one, we could skip all those 6 days. After all, it's the 7th day.
Yeah, it's so hard every day. It's only the last day that,
it's the seventh one that counts. So march around 7 times, and boom, the walls will come down.
Yeah.
Or, why do it 6 days in a row? We'll just add those 6 days onto the 7th day.
Right.
Does it really matter? Now, you've still walked around, 13 times, but that would not have been living out the words of God.
Yeah, because those 6 days was making a witness. There was a purpose to it. It wasn't just to test their faith, which is part of it, but it was also creating a testimony and witness for generations to come of what God did through the Israelites.
Right. So basically, our plans, one, it's easier and it makes sense to us, and yet God has us living out the letters of His plan for us, one letter at a time. Mm-hmm. And it takes faith to do that, because we cannot see the end to that. Mm-hmm. We know He has promised us a generalized ending for everyone who follows in His footsteps, but we have no concept of the depth of a relationship that we can have with God if we just live out His words to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now moving on to Abraham, of course, because that was our text, right? Where he said, God will provide. It's like Abraham, the faith-building moments in his life.
Well, there were a bunch.
Yeah, that he went through, and they all culminate in being actually willing to sacrifice his son when God asked him to do that.
But it was, a lot of things happened in the journey to get him there.
Yes, a lot of things happened to get him there, and God, he only had the first part of that. He only had go sacrifice your son. Mm-hmm. He had no idea at what was going to happen after that. Mm-hmm. And yet, so basically, God, of course, provides a ram, and Abraham names the place God will provide.
Mm-hmm. That particular moment, had he not had all the other moments in doing God's word.
Right, all these little truths that he had lived out on a daily basis with God. And all those times, he named it God will provide. He had to have been thinking also about all those times where he did not live out the words of God, and he provided for himself.
Yeah.
When he lied about his
Sarah.
wife being his sister.
Twice.
Yes. And, sleeping with the maid and such to provide his own heir when God had promised him an heir. And so now he knows the whole message of truth, right? That God provides. God provides. That's the whole truth. And when we live out each little step that God has there for us, we get to that big truth. We think we understand that God provides. We go, yeah, God provides. I know that. Not to the understanding that Abraham had, for example, when he actually experienced the depth of that provision that God had for him.
Yeah, it's those living out, it's like doing the little lead to the big things, and we sometimes want to be ready for the big things, and I'm ready for the big but it's actually all those little tests, little trials of faith, little acts of faith, little living out the truth that prepares us for the bigger story and the bigger picture and the bigger depth of a relationship and the big things.
So when God has a truth for you to live out, no matter how small, think of it as an adventure. It's an adventure to go on. Where is God taking you with this, right? It's not an end, though sometimes it would seem that it is. You know, death to self seems like an end, but it's not. It's just the beginning of this grand adventure with God. And each truth lived out leads to the next truth. That leads to the next. Each one taking us deeper and deeper into the heart of who God is.
And sometimes, not always, but sometimes we have to get through one truth to get to the next. We have a saying in recovery about all lessons in life will be repeated until learned. Meaning things we hold on to, patterns we hold on to, or things we refuse to learn, we keep kind of staying in that same place until we learn.
Yeah, and that's not because we refuse to live out the truth. As simple as it may be, and we may think we understand the truth, but until we actually live it out, it becomes an entirely different thing. Knowing truth and living out truth is an entirely different experience.
And that brings kind of a new perspective to the truth will set you free. When you actually live the truth, it sets you free because you let go, or you're breaking the chains of whatever patterns or untruths or lies or whatever that you kind of held you in that place. It really does set you free to go to the next adventure, to go to the next step, to go to the next truth.
Yes, and it is an adventure. And so since we're starting out the new year tomorrow, you know, I just want to challenge you to do that, to live out God's little, what seems to be little truths, the ones that don't seem to matter. They matter so much. And if I challenge you to live out those little truths this next year and see at the end of the year how much deeper your relationship with God is.
Sometimes it's the small, insignificant things that we think are small or insignificant that actually have profound, big impacts on us that we never would have known or guessed until we actually do it.
Yeah, it reminds me, it was a news article I read about some of the Ukrainian soldiers who had been wounded were here in the United States because they needed prostheses. Prosthetics. Yes, you know, maybe some new legs and such like that. And it was going to take far too long in their country to have that done. And also other countries were backed up. And so here in the United States, some people, like actually an Adventist place, was providing some free services for those soldiers and such.
Oh, the bikers are here.
Yes, it's nice. Oh, it's such a lovely day today.
Yeah.
So anyways, one soldier was saying, you know, some of the soldiers won't see their wives, you know, and yet he says, I couldn't do it without mine. And one of the wives said, you know, yeah, sure, we're going to go home, and no, he won't be able to fight as a soldier anymore. But you know what, we're going to go home, and he wants to start a farm. They'd bought some property before the war and such to do that. And she said, you know, he's always made me coffee in the morning. And we're going to go home, and he's still going to make me coffee every morning, even though he's walking around now on 2 prosthetic legs rather than his own legs. And so it's those little things that take you into your deeper and deepest relationship.
Yeah. It's a good challenge for the new year. Live out the little things and see what big impacts and changes it has on you. Yeah. All right, well, this is Salt on Location.
Yes, it was lovely.
It was that. It's really pretty out here. And hopefully I don't know how many more nice days, because we had weather trying to kill us a week ago. And now it's being nice to us. But,
yes, it is lovely.
Yeah.
This next week is supposed to be pretty nice. I think.
So hope you had a great Sabbath, and thanks for joining us. And we're going to hope you have an awesome next Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time.